Hello, my friend. On today's podcast, I'm having back on the podcast again for I think the third time, Mr. Chris Travis. He is a Business for Unicorns coach and the founder of Seattle Strength and Performance in Seattle. And on today's episode, we're talking about a new event that he just hosted and founded for the very first time. It's called Seattle Fitness Week. He actually gathered together the whole industry, the whole fitness industry in Seattle to do this really amazing event. And it's a great lesson for all of you in how to do community engagement. So it's a great episode. Keep on listening. But before we dive in, I just have a quick announcement because we launched something brand new at Business for Unicorns that I'm so excited about. So for all of you out there who are looking to grow your gym, we just launched something called Gym Growth Blastoff. It's brand new. We did a version of this before, but this one is brand new and better than ever. It's a brand new self-paced course that gives you everything you need and nothing you don't to get more leads and clients month after month in your gym. We've worked so hard to make this course so practical, really easy to follow, and full of tactical advice for how to actually generate consistent leads month after month in your gym. And if you enroll in this brand new course before Tuesday, May 27th, you'll save $300. So click the link below in the show notes to find out more. And I hope you sign up because we're so proud of it and I think you'll love it. On with today's episode. Hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business for Unicorns podcast. Today's podcast is very exciting for me because back on the podcast again is one of my favorites. It's Mr. Chris Travis. Welcome back, my friend.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for
It's so good to have you. So good to have you. For those of you, for listeners who had not listened to previous podcasts with you, just tell us a little about you, my friend. Who are you?
Yeah. Well, I'm based in Seattle. I own Seattle Strength and Performance. We have 3 locations in different neighborhoods of Seattle, and I'm also a coach with BFU.
That's it. That's amazing. And, for those of you who haven't listened to Chris's past podcasts, we'll link them also down below. Go listen to those previous conversations. He's a true badass, opening multiple locations in Seattle in just a few years. And today we're going to talk about another badass thing you did, which is you had Seattle's very first kind of fitness week. And so just talk to me a little bit about tell our audience just what it is you did, and then we'll get into the details.
Yeah. So basically it was a 10-day event. So it ran in March 6th to the 15th. And it really kind of brought together the entire Seattle fitness community under one umbrella. So over 70 different locations participated in this. Everyone from the big guys like the Orange Theories and the Solid Cores to literally the mom and pop aerial shop down the street, with the instructors teaching every class. And so it was really cool. The premise behind it was, let's help people find a fitness home they love. Let's drive consumers back into fitness spaces, and let's all work together as a Seattle fitness community to do that.
Yeah, that's amazing, Chris. I can't wait to dive into this. I know we've told a few people in Unicorn Society about this, and people have been asking you, "Hey, can you record a podcast about it? Tell me more about how you did it." And I really wanted to have this podcast because many of you listening have tried to do some local partnerships before. Mm-hmm. You've tried to partner with other businesses, having some referral relationships, maybe partnering on some events. And I say with love, most of you all understandably take pretty small swings at business partnerships, right? Pretty small swings at community building outside of your 4 walls. And Chris took the biggest swing I've ever heard of, right? Which is we're actually launching a city-wide collaborative effort to get more people into everyone's gyms, which is huge. And I'm not recording this podcast. I think all of you should go start your town's first, town-wide, city-wide fitness event. But maybe you could, right? I think the reason I wanted to do this podcast for this audience is to just inspire you to think bigger, take bigger swings. Rather than going after 1 or 2 businesses at a time, why not go after many businesses, whole neighborhoods of businesses? Because I think the more you are the mayor of your town, the more you are 3 mile, 5 mile famous, the more you can drive consistent leads in your business. And so I think, and we'll talk about the leads that this drove, not just for your gym, Chris, but for the many gyms who participated. But that's really why I wanted to share it on this podcast, just inspire all of you to take bigger swings when it comes to being leaders in your community and in our industry. And so let's just start with, where did this idea come from, Chris? What made you think, let me do this giant project? You already had so much else on your plate.
I'll be honest, there's a long time where I had the idea and I tried to talk myself out of it.
Yeah.
This is a big undertaking.
It's huge.
It is huge. Yeah. It started actually back in 2022, actually, when we were coming out of COVID. I read an article in the Seattle Times, which talked about kind of like the overall nation's drop in gym memberships, right? Coming out of COVID, and obviously our industry was struggling at that time. And
Yep.
Seattle had one of the biggest drops. It dropped from about 28% of people in Seattle who had gym memberships prior to COVID to 18%.
Wow.
And I thought, oh my goodness, like this is terrible. We're not competing anymore we're not competing with each other. We're competing with other things that people are
Yes.
doing. We're competing
Yep.
with home fitness, other things, right? And so that kind of like planted the seed in my brain a little bit about something like this at some point. And then there's another thing in Seattle, which is highly successful, called Seattle Restaurant Week, which I know a lot of different cities have.
Yep.
It bands together, probably about 100 different restaurants in Seattle, all of which who come up with some kind of like prefix menu where people can go and enjoy over a certain period of time. And I thought, there's got to be a way that we can do this for fitness. And that was really the impetus for the idea.
Yeah. Listen, I love the analogy to Restaurant Week because every city I've ever lived in has had a version of Restaurant Week, and people really do take advantage of it. I mean,
Yeah.
well, sometimes the restaurants don't always love it because they have to, change their menu and often keep their prices a little lower for these events. It really exposes people to a lot of restaurants and places they wouldn't have gone otherwise, right? And I myself have gone places during Restaurant Week that I never thought I was interested in before or couldn't afford, but when they have a prefixed menu, it's such an easy yes to jump in, and on their website list all the places, and they open up extra reservations, make it really easy to go explore new places. And so I love that way of thinking about it. I also want to just highlight your point there, which is I don't think we're out of the woods yet, right? I don't know what that phrase is. Out of the woods yet when it comes to grappling with our competition. I think so many folks in our industry, and myself included at times, have our kind of nose in the sand about what our true competition is. And I think since COVID, it's really changed our competition. There's so many online things, not only the Pelotons of the world who look like they're struggling, but still have a huge foothold in people's financial investment in fitness, and all the Apple products that came about. We're also competing with other new trends like pickleball, right, and what's the frisbee golf? I just saw one. They just put up a frisbee golf thing at my local park nearby, and I saw people playing it the other day, and I was like, they're doing that instead of going to a gym in a lot of cases. And so anyway, I think that these are really great starting points for why you want to do something like this. So let's keep on going. So once you were like, okay, I want to do this thing like Restaurant Week, want to help our community really get more people in the door. Where do you start with a giant project like this?
Yeah. I mean, I started talking to people about it, right? And just kind of like bouncing the idea around a few different people and kind of getting some reactions, and kind of seeing what people thought. And largely it was highly positive. Like people were like, yeah, something like this is needed. And, most times when you do something like this, people are like, yeah, absolutely.
Of course.
You do it, please, because I don't want to touch this. And so, but I think generally there was really like a warm reception to this idea. And then I thought to myself, okay, if I'm actually going to do this, what do I need to do to make it successful? And I knew a big piece of this was going to be developing partnerships. And I think the gym studio side, I had no issues with. I felt like, okay, I can do that and approach gyms and studios and create those partnerships. It's more about, I need sponsors. I need brands to be behind this. And I need media. I need some kind of like PR push. And so I had already, I've already done a lot of work with a PR company for SSP, just because I launched new locations and they've done great work. And so I kind of pitched the idea to them and said, hey, here's what I'm thinking. They've worked on other large scale events in Seattle before. And their response was like, yeah, you have to do this. This is amazing. Like, this is going to be incredible. Once I got them on board, I couldn't turn back. So
well, I think that's a really wise, because I think a lot of people, when they take on a project like this, get overwhelmed and burned out immediately because they try and carry it all on their shoulders. And something, when you get to projects at this scale, just not one person can do it. I'm sure you still burnt yourself out a little bit by carrying a lot on your shoulders, but still, the fact that you were like, I need partners, I need other people to fund this, I need other people to participate, and other people to get the word out. I can't do this all on my own. And by gathering that community, you were able to make this very first one a huge success. So maybe just walk through, what's the process you used to get those people involved? Was it just a bunch of cold calls? How did you do it?
Honestly, the first step was, and I kind of broke it out into, what do I need first to kind of legitimize this thing?
Sure.
And the first thought was like, I need a big title sponsor. I need somebody a big brand that says like, hey, I back this initiative.
Sure.
And the PR company that I worked with, Revolution, who was great, they really helped to do that because they had already worked with Sweetgreen, who's obviously a
Mm,
big brand chain, and fits with the mold of fitness and healthy food. And so they had an in. We approached them. We basically pitched them on the idea, and they signed on with a pretty big amount of money to be our title sponsor for this first
great.
event. Really, before we had any
Sure.
gym or studio signed on.
Sure.
It was pretty much Sweetgreen said, "Yep, we're gonna take a flyer on this and see how it goes." Um, Once I had them, then I started to approach some of the bigger brands in Seattle. So like the bigger gyms and studios, the chain brands. So I got the Pure Bar on board. I got Solid Core on board, and a few others, just to say, okay, now we've got a big title sponsor and a big brand that's behind this, and we've got big gyms and studios who want to participate in this, and now we've got momentum to kind of like push to that next tier.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, in fundraising, that's often kind of a known phenomenon, right? The idea that you need to get someone to go first,
Yeah.
right? Which is it's just I think really important to have that sense of credibility,
Mhm.
right? That like Sweetgreens is doing it. Yeah, we should totally get on
Totally.
board.
Yeah.
This seems legit, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
That's huge. All right, well then walk through like just the logistics of what you were actually trying to accomplish here, because what you obviously need these sponsors to
Yeah.
kind of build the event and get the word out and all
Yeah.
that. But then there was some technology component where you're trying to make it easier for people to book through all of your participating gyms. So just kind of talk through the logistics of what you're
Yeah.
setting up here.
Yeah. The funny thing about this is that I had no idea how this is going to work. And I remember having an informational call
Yep.
with gyms and studios. Like everybody's on this Zoom call and I'm talking about this event. And they're like, how exactly are people going to book sessions? I'm like, I'll just, don't worry about that. Like we're figuring it out. We're going to make it happen.
Yep.
Um, but it was kind of fortuitous. So as I was talking to gyms and studios, there was another gym in Seattle who had been talking to a startup called Gym Key,
Mm,
who was really kind of making an app that's like an open marketplace app for gyms. So
sure.
based on like dynamic pricing, and if you want to come at 2 p.m. to an open gym and use the treadmill, it's not going to be a $30 drop in, it's going to be like an $8, right? And the
Got
gym's
it.
still making money in a very slow time. And they said, "Hey, we're going to launch our app, um, and this feels like something that has some
Hmm.
synergy to it.
Yeah.
How about we work together?" And we obviously gave them some exposure. We almost kind of became, honestly, because I was doing all the gyms and studio conversations. I was like, I'm kind of their business development arm here,
Yeah.
really having all these
You're kind of
conversations
pitching on
and
their behalf,
exactly onboarding all of these gyms and studios to them, and they're helping with the technology side. And so but there were, obviously with any technology and having come from a tech background in Amazon, I had to put my, product manager hat
Yep.
back on and figure this thing out. But there were some kinks to work out. And thankfully I have somebody on my team who's actually a trained software developer.
Wow, that's
Um,
convenient.
and so she had some experience working with databases. And so she actually, as a side project, took this on to create a database where we could send a code to our customer once they made the purchase for SFW, and then that code would then work to activate their account on GymKey. So there's a
Love.
few steps
Yep.
involved here, but ultimately it worked out. But yeah, there was a while there was a little dicey. I wasn't
Yeah,
sure how it
I
would
mean,
work.
good for you. And the fact that you have that tech background, the other people on your team did, you
Yeah.
found this company to make the technology work and create a more seamless experience for consumers, I think is fantastic. I think it's part of what made it so magical. Let me just I'm not being devil's advocate. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
What made you felt like you need that technology part, right? So for example, at
Yeah.
I guess the restaurant week analogy breaks down a little bit because
Mhm.
everyone always makes restaurant reservations on the same platforms. So like
Yeah.
they don't really need a combined place. But couldn't you just put up a website with all the places that participated? I mean,
Mhm.
what made you think that step was necessary?
Yeah, great question. I didn't know that it was necessary, but I
Mm,
I felt from a consumer perspective it was going to be a lot smoother and a lot
mm,
better of a proposition for them. And so
yeah,
I think the alternative to us not doing a centralized thing was we basically just put up offers and like a single offer at every gym and studio
sure.
across Seattle, and they would have to manage their own booking and
Yep.
onboarding and all of that kind of stuff. I thought, how clunky is that?
Yeah.
And this goes back to, I guess, a little bit of my Amazon days, the
Sure.
customization piece, where I was like,
Yeah.
I just feel like we have to make this better. So I wanted one single $49 pass that a customer could purchase that then gave them access to everything. And it operated a little bit like a class pass ish model,
Sure.
right? Where you would buy the pass and be able to sign up for different sessions. But there was a much larger variety of gyms and studios on there than you would normally see on like a class pass.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense. And honestly, it seems like the best possible version of this event
Mhm.
is something that centralizes that, creates as
Yeah.
less little friction as possible to make it really easy for people who are not regular class pass type folks to say, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to buy a pass. I'm going to try out some places I've
Yep.
never been before. Because that's the audience you're really trying to capture with this.
Yeah.
Not everyone who already
100%.
has a gym membership,
Yep.
people who don't. So I think that the ease of use, I think, is huge. And the fact that you could accomplish it in such a short
Mhm.
period of time is impressive.
Yeah. The other
Yeah.
thing I should call out is that I took all of the consumer proceeds and I donated that to charity.
Mm,
So we just made a huge charitable component. We had 3 charities on board who are all great, very strong partners, collaborated on all of our posts and really trying to get the word out. And so that was kind of a cool thing for consumers too, is, hey, I
yep.
get to buy this pass, I get to try all these gyms and studios, but also I'm doing a good thing.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. That's amazing. Yeah, I think it really does. It really does drive the kind of community aspect. We have a lot of shared values. We're
Mhm.
making our city better by
Exactly.
supporting local business.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fantastic. All right, so
Hey there, Business of Unicorns podcast listeners. I'm just making absolutely sure you have already gotten your free, instantly downloadable copy of my new book, The Little Book of Gym Marketing Secrets. You can find a link to download it in the show notes, or you can go to gymmarketingsecretsbook.com. I worked super hard to make sure this is a less than 30-minute read and is a comprehensive overview of all the things you need to do to grow your gym, get more leads, more clients, and importantly, change more lives. Again, find the link in the show notes where you can download your free copy at gymmarketingsecretsbook.com. And now back to the podcast.
all right, so let's walk through the actual event itself. So once
Mhm.
this thing was up and running, you have sponsors, you have
Yeah.
gyms that are on board, you have an
Mhm.
app that helps connect consumers to these gyms to buy a $49 pass and try out some places. Like, how did it go?
Yeah, it went really well. Yeah, I didn't even know what to expect. I didn't know, the scale that we were going to get. I didn't know the
Hmm.
consumers. Um, we got some, the PR company did some great work. We got in Seattle Magazine, we got in Seattle Times, and the one thing that I was honestly skeptical about that they pitched me really hard on was partnering with influencers,
Sure.
which I had never done before.
Yeah.
And at one point we had so many influencers going, trying studios, posting about it. Like the hype was so huge for Seattle Fitness Week that the Seattle Fitness Week Instagram had like 116,000 views in the
Wow.
past 30 days. I mean, it was wild. Just looking at those stats. We had
Which is
over
incredible for like a brand new Instagram account.
yeah, wow. Yeah, absolutely crazy. I was just
Yeah.
seeing it like pick up and I was like, oh my goodness, this is
Yep.
crazy. Um, we had over 3,600 bookings during the 10-day event, so it was like pretty well attended. The average Seattle Fitness Week consumer attended 5 different gyms or studios,
Wow.
which is really cool to see.
I mean, even
Um,
3,600 visits in 10 days is outrageous.
yeah, it's outrageous. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, they were just, and obviously, like, some of the learnings we had was like, anytime you do something with fitness, you have no shows, you have late
Of
cancels, you
course.
have all that kind of stuff. So those are some of the things that we had to, to figure out. But overall, like the adoption was great, I thought, from my perspective.
Yeah. Great. So you had that many people trying out new places. And what do you know about conversions? Like, what kind of gyms had
Yeah.
people stick around afterwards? Do you know
Yeah.
that?
So we did some surveying from
Uh,
consumers afterwards, and over 30% purchased at least one offer from a gym or studio following Seattle Fitness Week, which is
Great.
cool. At least 50% said they were considering it. So
Great.
gym studios were still in contact. That means, you have a bucket of 80% of the people who are in this, either they purchased or considering a purchase for something
Yep.
afterwards. SSP specifically, we had 107 bookings
Wow.
during that time, which actually accounted for 40 unique people. So we had some unique visits or repeat visits over that time.
Sure.
We converted 16 people into an
Wow.
offer afterwards.
So
So
40 unique brand new people in 10 days
exactly.
and
Yeah.
16 memberships out of that is huge.
Huge. Yeah. I mean, I just think about like the customer acquisition cost of driving 16 leads and
Yes.
selling them into your business is very high, And
Yeah.
so for this, most gyms and studios, they, some of them did do some sponsorship money. We're talking about $250 or $750,
Sure.
not a lot, but for that kind of marketing budget to be able to get that many consumers in your door and have the opportunity to convert them, well worth it.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I love that some of them had some skin in the game and some of them were just, couldn't
Mhm.
afford that or along for the ride. It's great that you
Exactly.
gave them the option.
Yeah, for sure.
That's amazing. Any other lessons learned? I mean, looking back at this, obviously the first question anyone's going to ask is, are you going to do it again?
Yeah.
Other than that, what other lessons learned? So let's start with the most obvious one first. Are you going to do it again? Is someone going to do it again?
Yeah, I think somebody's going to do it again. I haven't
Yeah.
figured out if it's going to be me or not. It did take a big lift from me.
Yeah. I can imagine.
And my team is great at SSP, so like they held it down, but I was not necessarily working in that business for a good chunk of time.
Of course.
And so they were holding it down, and I think anytime you do something like this, it just takes a lot of effort. So I'm talking to other people in the community to figure out if we share it next year. Or something. I do think it is something that we want to endure. I do think it is something that's powerful for the community. So we will do it again. One of the interesting learnings for me just coming out of it was, like my initial vision was this class pass based model, and we're talking about like larger group class environments. But there were some like personal training studio gyms or small group gyms that participated. And a lot of the questions they had at first was like, how is this going to work? Right? Like, how do we make it so that our model works within the context of Seattle Fitness Week? And honestly, we tried at SSP. We had we have some large group classes, so we had access to those. But we also did these kind of like one-on-one, what we call intro to SSP personal training sessions, which was kind of a mix of a strategy session where we sat down and talked to them for the first 15 minutes. Yep. And we actually took them through a one-on-one personal training session.
Yep.
Which lasted a good, probably close to an hour.
Sure.
And most of the people that converted into our trial membership afterwards were the people that came to those intro to SSP sessions because they had such a strong experience.
Yep.
And obviously we had to tell them like, hey, most of what we do is small group. But when they were doing the intro to SSP session, they saw the small group happening.
Of course.
So they knew what was going on. And so I thought that was a really powerful learning for me. So next year, if we do it again, it's like, I think we have an option for every single type of gym and every model that wants to run as a way to get SFW consumers in the door.
Yeah. I think it's such a great lesson because, especially when you're trying to attract people who are not part of that 20, 30% who already have gym memberships, there's a reason often that they don't. And so they want, and really some cases they need a really smooth on-ramp. They need a really soft, a soft place to land when they try your gym for the first time. And there's nothing like that one-on-one hour where you can talk, build rapport, move a little, make it challenging enough, but not too hard, get to know them, introduce them to a few people. When you can have that, we have the capacity to have that be everyone's first experience. It converts at such a high rate that makes total sense to me. So the fact that you can do a promotion like this, an event like this, and have it work for every kind of model, I think is so magical. I think it's so great. So I'm just circling back to the beginning of this conversation where I was saying to our listeners, we're not doing this so everyone has their own Seattle Fitness Week. If you want to, great. Talk to Chris. So, he just told you how he did it. So you can go out and replicate this model. But for those of people who are like, well, I'm never going to do something at that scale. What thoughts, ideas, advice you have for them for how they can, use the inspiration from this idea to make some outreach of their own?
I actually just had a conversation with a BFU member about this on a coaching call the other day because they were interested in putting something together. I think honestly, it doesn't need to be complicated. I think I hear a lot about these kind of like fitness crawls or fitness small style events or weekend events within the communities. I think if you get 4, 5, 6 different studios and gyms involved, you could even talk about tangential places, like we had Stretch 22 involved. We had, you could even do like, smoothie cafes or whatever it may be, wellness-based businesses. And just kind of band them together, leverage each other's marketing, your email list, your social media, come up with an offer for consumers. Doesn't necessarily have to be consolidated like this one. If you don't think it's hard to pull off, because I think then you'd have to figure out a revenue share and all of that kind of stuff. But you could do just, hey, every single one of these businesses is running an offer over this 5-day period. It's a limited time offer. Go check it out. So, I think it's just about the organization and making sure on the marketing side that everyone's pushing it equally.
Yeah, I agree. I love that idea so much, Chris. I think when we talk about business partnerships with Unicorn Society members, the thing I'm always pressing them on, this is a perfect example of this, that business partnerships work when two businesses that have like digital or physical footprint can leverage each other's audiences, right?
Yep.
So what you're looking for is other businesses in your community that have a physical or digital footprint that you can leverage, meaning they have an online audience in terms of, big email lists, social media followers, et cetera, or they have some sort of physical footprint that's really, they're in the center of town. They got a lot of foot traffic, a lot of visibility, at an intersection, whatever it is. And if you can leverage those things by you getting in front of their audience and talking directly to their audience and then letting them get in front of your audience. And that's what we're talking about here, right? We're talking about, instead of in regular nutritional marketing, we're going after like kind of one lead at a time. You're going after a whole community at a time, a whole audience. That smoothie place down the street, they have a huge social media following. Let me go get in front of their 5,000 followers, right? Once a week in an Instagram takeover, once a month an Instagram takeover, or let's do this thing every spring and fall where we get in front of each other's audience and invite them in, open house style. It can be very simple, but I think, at the heart of your idea here is let's leverage each other's reach. Let's leverage each other's audiences to grow our own. And I think that's, so powerful no matter how you do it.
100%. Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me wrap up here with maybe one last question, which is, just looking back, is there anything that you would do differently when it comes to this project that would be useful for our audience to hear?
Yeah. I think, it was a pretty compressed timeline, I put against it. So I started, I think, in November of 24. What year is it? 2025? Yeah.
Yep.
November of 24. And obviously over the holiday period, you couldn't really get a ton accomplished. We were able to get Sweet Green during that time, but no gyms and studios, I think.
Sure.
And so really it started to really kick off in January. And then from January, you only had, we're talking like 10 to 12 weeks to really pull this thing off. So I think I'd give myself a little bit more lead time next time.
Yeah.
And I think there's some logistics stuff that we got to work out,
Sure.
We had a 24-hour cancellation policy because the Gym Key didn't integrate with the gyms and studio CRMs. There's so many of them, right?
Of course.
It's almost impossible. So we're trying to leave some time for, in case of late cancellations and the gym to be able to manage their own reservation system. And I think that was a bit clunky. So we got to figure that piece out.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I think that first one I think is huge for anyone trying to do anything like this.
Totally.
Just give yourself 2-3 times more time than you think you need.
Yeah.
Just because every business that you're going to try and work with, whether it's a fundraiser, someone you're fundraising with, or another gym, they're on their own timelines. Like they got their own stuff going on. So integrating yourself into the timeline of their marketing and their operations, you have to have some huge lead time to make that happen.
Huge, yeah, and a lot of training.
Yeah.
And good support. Yeah,
100%. 100%. Well, this is amazing, Chris. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for doing such great work on behalf of our industry, like to get more people and more eyeballs coming into gyms like ours. It's such a huge effort you put into this, and it paid off. I mean, so many great gyms, including your own, really benefited from an effort like this. So congratulations. Bravo.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Thanks for coming on to share. All right, friends. Well, hope that you found this valuable. Chris, where can people find you and learn more about your gym?
Yeah. You go to seattlesp.com. That's where we are on the web. You can also find me on Instagram at chris.travis with 3 S's.
Yeah. And your Seattle Fitness Week socials, I think, are still up, right? So if people want to find out where that's heading in the future, go check it out.
Yeah. SeattleFitnessWeek.com and then at Seattle Fitness Week.
Great. We'll leave those down below. Thanks again, Chris. I'll see you on the next one.
Bye.